Well, good morning and welcome to Move Early, Move Often. It is Twisted Tuesday. I am Blake Martin. And we spend a lot of time sitting at our desks these days and not moving as much. And part of the work that Thomas Karakolis did was looking at the effects of prolonged sitting. And we know that that's not great. One of the effects that I also know of from some research that I've done looking at people sitting in vehicles for prolonged periods of time is that your hip flexors get really shortened, and that can impede movement. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to do a bunch of hip flexor stretches. We're going to move progressively through these. The goal this morning is not to do every stretch at 11. And, we want to scale it really back. We're going to do longer duration, lower intensity stretching. And that way we're going to focus on some of the connective tissue that surrounds the muscles as well as the muscles themselves. So without any further conversation, let's get to it. I have a new addition. His name is Pippin, and he's going to be racing around here. There's nothing I can do about it. All right, so let's just begin just with easy marching. Just to get a little bit of movement in our hips. We are doing our hip flexors, so we are going to have to do that a little higher. Swing your arms, get your heart beating. We're trying to get the synovial fluid, that's the glop that's in the joint capsule. We're trying to get that to move around. Now let's do some spider stomps out and in and out and in. 6. Other leg. Nice and high, going all the way around so that we're really getting a rotational aspect to things. And leg swings. Forward and back, just nice and loose. Nice and loose. Leg swings. And opposite leg. Six. Be nice and tall. Very loose here in the hip. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to do transverse swings here. We're warming up the muscles that are around the hip, and a warmer muscle stretches more easily. Transverse going across the body. We'll do that again for another 8. Oh, you gotta watch out. No, don't kick the kitten. He thinks this is a game, of course. And another 8. All right. So let's just kind of, we're going to start with just a very gentle standing lunge. So bring one leg forward. You want to be just kind of you want your hips to be square. The point here is for the hips to be square. And we're going to step with our hip back. Our knee is pointing towards the ceiling, the back of our knee. And you're going to press your heel towards the floor. And here, you want your torso to be nice and tall. And we're just going to lift our arms. Breathe, lower intensity stretch again. Lower intensity. And just breathe into this. My timer is very quietly going in the background there. I want it to be a reminder for me more than for you. And if you can, just a little bit lower into this stretch. But again, lower intensity, longer duration. Reach your fingers to the ceiling, really reach your fingers to the ceiling, and square your hips so that got nice openness through the front here. And match your feet together. Opposite leg back. Nice low stretch here. All right, I need to be just a little bit further back, a little bit lower. Squaring my hips so that my hips are both facing directly forward with my shoulders. And now I'm going to bring my hands forward and up. And I'm really going to feel the stretch in through the pectineus and the anterior muscles here of the hip. My shoulders are down, my fingers are up, and I'm reaching away. And I'm just breathing slowly and fully. If your breath is catching, and brighten the back of your knee on the stretched leg, on the extended leg. Just really feel that it's bright and your heel is reaching towards the ground away from your fingers. And your fingers reaching towards the heavens. So we've really got that openness. If you can't breathe fully and deeply, then you may be a little too deep in your stretch. All right. Coming out, let's come down. Onto our abdomen. And let's take a second to set the stretch up. So my shoulders are going to be, my elbows are going to be under my shoulders. And now what I'm going to do is I'm pulling my elbows towards my hips. And I'm going to lift my chest so that my chest is open. And I'm just breathing. And this is kind of my abdomen and very gentle, very gentle on my hip flexors. And really draw the elbows in towards your hips. Very active here. All right, let's come over onto our backs. We're actually going to do a pelvic bridge. And the reason being that activating, so lift your hips. Now, you're going to lift your hips as much as possible. We're actually activating the hip extensors. And again, you're trying to get your hips up. So your hips are lifting as much as possible. And by activating the hip extensors, we're doing something called reciprocal inhibition or reciprocal innervation. And we're actually actively engaging the opposite muscles of the hip flexors, which will allow the hip flexors to relax even more than they are. So if you need to come down for a second, come down for a second. Just allow the back to go onto the floor and then resume activating the hip extensors, opening the hips to the ceiling. Feel that it's really open. All right. Coming back around. Let's take a 90-90. And now I want you to advance that foot even further forward. We're going to press into the hip here, again, keeping the hip square. The hip is nice and square. This is a low lunge with the knee down. Again, this gets at a lot of the, it gets at the hip flexors. We've locked the pelvis so that the hip can press forward here, and it's opening up for the hip flexors. I can feel it a bit in my pectineus, but also this will get a little bit at iliacus and psoas. We'll just continue to hold this. Place your hands on your knee and open your shoulders. Try not to hyperextend in the back, but to lift up through the full torso. Nice and tall. staying on this side, take that leg and lift it up. Now we're engaging the rectus femoris, which is a muscle that crosses both the hip and the knee. And it is responsible for, it's kind of the kicking muscle. It flexes your hip, extends your knee. And when we do this, we're stretching that one. You may feel that in the belly of the muscle. Again, be conscientious that we're doing shorter, lower intensity, longer duration. So just hold on to this. We're continuing for a round 2, another 20 seconds of this. And just breathing. Try to bring the heel to the buttocks. And yeah, it's getting part of your quad, but it's the only part of your quad that also crosses your hip. So an important stretch for your hip flexors because this guy does it all. He does it all. Release that foot down. Match your knees together. And opposite leg forward. So again, with your hips very square, watch it if they're rotating backwards, and come forward into this this lunge, and just be open with your hands on your knee, your shoulders open. The crown of your head is reaching away from your hips. Feel a long line from the crown of your head to your down knee. And just breathe and fully allow that to open. And nice and tall here. If you want to creep your toes forward a little bit on the front, you can do that. But you don't want your knee to go past your ankle, okay? We want our knee to be really nice and well aligned here. All right, and let's reach back and grab that back leg. And we're opening up again, doing rectus femoris. It's this muscle that crosses both the hip and the knee. Flexes the hip, extends the knee. And by doing the opposite, by extending the hip and flexing the knee, we're able to stretch it. And just breathing and trying to ignore the kitten going crazy in front of you, or the child. You may have a child, not a kitten. And ten seconds remaining. Nice long duration stretch here. Release. Let's come to the opposite leg. We're going to do a low lunge. So this is much lower than our first high lunge. And we're going back to this one again, and we're just extending the back of the knee, nice and tall. You want to be quite low here, about as low as you can get. And brighten, just have the knee is just kind of lifting to the ceiling behind you. The heel is moving toward the ground. And now on this second set, let's just put the blade of the foot flat on the ground. And we're going in here, we're trying to get at pectineus. It's a muscle that draws the thigh inward, but also flexes the hip. So we're trying to get at both these guys. Come out of the stretch. Come up and forward. Opposite leg back into this low lunge. And just get your hip, your heel back there. Nice and high. Again, the back of the knee is extending toward the ceiling away from you. And the heel is reaching towards the ground. The crown of your head is reaching away from your hips. And once again, let's just place the blade of the rear foot on the ground and open up. So we're getting a little bit the adductor flexor here, the pectineus. That's our objective here. Nice and tall. All right, coming down, and you may or may not be able to do this. So we'll just give it a little try. You're going to place your hands on your heels and press your hips forward. It's a beginning of a camel pose in yoga. If you can't do it, that's fine. Just opening and pressing your hips through. I'm terrible at it. I'm just giving it a try here and coming back out. Let's come down. Press your hips back into child's pose. Round your back. Tent up your fingers. Inhale. Allow your head to roll forward and down. Press up into tabletop position. Round your back into cat. Come down. Cow. Round again to cat. Down into cow. One last time here. Inhale. Cow. Come into a kneeling position just briefly. Tall, centered, ready to face your day. These hip flexor stretches are a good way to start your day, a good way to finish your day. It's just good to get that openness when we spend so much time sitting. Also great after a long drive. You can take these with you anywhere. You've moved early. I hope you remember to move often. I hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll see you back tomorrow for Wobbly Wednesday. Take care.